It's time to center mental health in Omaha. At Community Alliance, we're building a new center at 72nd and Mercy Road so that anyone seeking help for their mental health can access the personalized care they need to flourish. Support our campaign at mentalhealthomaha.org.
Hello and welcome to The Baker's Show. At Baker's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big. Because when you order online through the Baker's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in-store, with no hidden fees or markups. So no matter how you shop, you'll always save big at Baker's. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras. On the Good Wives Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Christina, are about to serve up another true crime case.
Hey guys, so thank you for joining us today. It's me and Colleen, and we have Sheryl McCollum joining us. She is from coldcasecrimes.org. She holds up the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute, but everybody calls her Mac. So why does everybody call you Mac, Sheryl?
Well, when I was a college professor full-time, the students used to call me Miss McCollum. Then it became Miss Mac, and then it just became Mac.
Miss Mary Mac.
Yep.
That's makes sense.
That makes sense.
My last name is McShane, so I totally get the whole MC, then different capital letter.
Sure.
And definitely get it. No one can pronounce my first name, Colleen. And so, like, people just eventually started calling me other names that I'm like, yep, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yep.
Well, that's how I went from Francesca to Fancy, because I would get on set, and I used to be an actress. I still am from time to time, but I do a lot more on the writing side and producing side now. But that was the same thing. I would get this weird pronunciation, or they'd just be like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, it's a really easy name. Why is this so hard? And so that's how I became Fancy, because I was like, well, I didn't like Franny or Frankie or Fanny or any of those things. So I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. So that's how I ended up with Fancy, because I came up with something.
Well, how wonderful.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just, so I totally understand going by having something like that happen. So you're the founder of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute in Atlanta, Georgia, and that is super amazing. And you're also a crime analyst. So how did you get started, and what's like your background, so that we can kind of let our listeners know how you came here?
Well, I'm a crime scene investigator for a living in a metro Atlanta police department, but I have a pretty solid background in criminal justice across the board. I used to be with the Crime Commission, and when I was with the Crime Commission, I was assigned to the Major Case Division, and I had a really young prosecutor. There was a go-getter, just a fireball kind of chick, and we became real close real fast and did some pretty amazing things together, and that young prosecutor was Nancy Grace.
Oh my God. Wow.
Of course it's Nancy Grace.
Of course it's Nancy Grace. And it's so funny because when I first started watching Nancy, like, I used to think she was just a loudmouth crazy lady that screamed at everybody. And I was like, God, that woman is so obnoxious. But then I thought about, well, I bet people think that about me too, because I'm kind of loud and I'm kind of boisterous and everything. And then I read her book, Objection, and I learned about who she was and how she came into everything. And it changed my whole opinion on her. Like, And then
Sure.
through the years, you know, I've watched her, and she's rather amazing. Like, she's
amazing, period.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I tell people, because sometimes they'll say to me, oh my God, she's just, you know, screaming and, like you said, obnoxious and whatnot.
Right.
And I would always ask them, if your mama was murdered, would you want her on that case or not?
Right.
And 100% of the time, they're like, well, of course.
Right.
Okay, then that's all you have to know about her.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. You know,
we interviewed Eli Page and just
Levi.
last week.
Levi Page.
Levi.
Yes.
I like Levi.
Yeah.
And so we talked about Nancy a lot in the last few weeks.
Yeah, because we talked with Joseph Scott Morgan too. Joseph Scott Morgan.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've made a few rounds of people that hit with her, and I mean, I would love to just talk with her. She seems like a super amazing person, and she is exactly who, if something happened to my family, I would want her all over it. I'd want her calling out everybody in the world. I'd want her screaming from the hilltops, especially if something didn't seem right, you know?
Exactly. And I tell people too, so she's mad that this stepmother murdered her stepson. Why aren't you?
Right.
That's what floors me, is when somebody doesn't have that equal passion about it. We should all be that angry.
Right. Well, we got lumped in with her at one point in time on when we were doing, you know, we started off, we did 3 years on the Gypsy case, Gypsy Rose Blanchard case. And we got lumped in with her because I was very close to the family. I was best friends, you know, at the time with her stepmother for a very long time. And I was close with Gypsy for a long time until I said some things that they didn't agree with. And we came out at the time when she was dating the fiance and deciding that they were going to get married in prison. And I was asked by In Touch, you know, to do an article about it. And I did, because I had been working with them for a long time on this. I had been debunking episode by episode, like what was right, what wasn't right in the act. And while I think the act was a decent, you know, like if it wasn't that I knew the case, then I would have thought the act was wonderful. I think the acting was wonderful. I thought everything about that was great. The cinematography was good. But, you know, knowing what I knew, I couldn't just stand by and be like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. So I had done this series of articles with them. And then they asked me about, you know, Gypsy getting married in prison. And my partner and I, Tori Johnson and I, we both spoke on it. And we were very respectful. And we had said something about Dr. Phil not liking it. And he had spoken out. He'd said something, and Nancy had spoken out and said something. And they were like, yeah, well, you know what? Nancy just yells about everything. Are you just like her? And I was like, yeah, actually, yeah. You know, yeah, if you want to put it that way, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
I don't have a problem being lumped in with Dr. Phil and Nancy on that at all. No,
that ain't bad company.
That's not bad company, you know. And you can say what you want about Dr. Phil, but I mean, he is what he is, and he, in some ways, I agree with him. In other ways, I don't. But I mean. Sure. On this case, I've agreed with a lot that he has said, and I've agreed with a lot that she said, you know, and if anybody was not concerned about a girl who's never had a life getting married to some guy she didn't know beforehand in prison after never having any other outside romantic interest, you got to be like, you know, like, who are you to not be worried about that? That's very worrisome, you know, so.
And I think that's what's so critical about true crime. Nancy and I have not always agreed. Sure. We didn't agree on Top Mom.
Right.
I flat said on her show she's going to walk out of that courtroom. And we don't have to agree. Nancy's premise was correct. As a mama, as a prosecutor, as a human being, whatever happened to that baby was ultimately her responsibility. I agree with that.
Yes.
But legally, were they going to get a murder conviction? Absolutely not.
Right.
And, you know, at the time, you know, I told her, I said, Nancy, I've been to 4 dinner parties this week. And do you know what nobody can agree on? How that baby died.
Right.
Some people say she got into mama's drugs. Some people say mama killed her because mama wanted to be footloose and fancy free. Some people say she drowned in the swimming pool. Nobody can agree.
Right.
Well, if you don't know the cause of death, you ain't got murder.
Yep. And especially first degree murder with the death penalty.
You don't have it.
Right. And so we've talked about that a lot.
But yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I think we all know on some level she should have been in prison for something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I think she was charged incorrectly. She should have been
yes.
charged with
We talk about
illegally disposing of a dead body. That would be 5 years right there.
Yeah.
But
we talk about that a lot on our podcast. We have talked about it over and over again. We intend to cover that case in detail.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think in the true crime world, everybody always seems to think that, we're all going to see it exactly the same way. And we don't. No. But it doesn't mean that we can't be respectful of each other or have, or be, I can see your point. I can look at another person's point and go,
sure.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but,
But here's the bottom line.
Right,
that's what makes my case better. That's what makes my case stronger. So if you were to say to me, oh, man, you totally missed it on the, marijuana being in the bedroom, I'd be like, okay, explain to me how I missed it. What should I have seen?
What should I have seen? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people, and anybody that's ever worked with me will tell you, I like to go to the horse's mouth myself.
We are too.
It doesn't matter who it is. So you can take my personal phone, and anybody that's at Crime Con, if they would like to do it, it'll be in there. I've got hookers in there. I've got pimps in there. I've got Klansmen in there. I got Black Panthers in there.
Right.
Because again, I have not been any of those things.
Right.
But there's a period of time where I need that person's expertise, no matter how sinister it is.
Absolutely.
So if I've got somebody that, is a hardcore pimp, you're a guerrilla pimp, cool. Do you think this girl was sold into the sex slave trade? If you tell me no, I'm going to listen to you. And I'm not going to waste my time telling everybody, oh, I bet she's been sold into slavery. She has not.
She has not. Right. Exactly.
Well, and we have a pretty good friend who's up and coming, Laura Jacqueline, and she's got just serial killers saved in her phone.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right. And in the same thing, we learned a lot because we started off on one very, very supportive side of that. When we first saw the case and I first got on it and we all started looking at everything, it appeared to be one way. And we were very supportive of Gypsy and the family and all of that. But talking to every single person in that family, looking at everything that we ended up with that even the prosecutor and the defense didn't have because she took that plea. And because we worked with her after that, we got things they didn't have.
Sure.
We saw stuff they didn't see. And once we saw all of that, our position on things changed drastically, through the investigation. And it's not that I don't think that Gypsy was abused. We do. And it's not that we don't see some of the things, but when you put it all together and you look at everything, it's a very different picture than what anybody in the public has seen. And, it was heartbreaking for us to go through that process.
Sure.
And come to a conclusion of, wow, it's not exactly what we thought it was. When we did that, the family turned on us. Gypsy turned on us. And, we were threatened by them. We were told that our careers would be ruined. We'd never be able to do another thing in true crime. And I was like, and I came to the realization at one point in time when Gypsy said this to me in a very nasty email, I thought, honey, you're a murderer. I don't care which way you look at it. You're a murderer. You're not going to impact what I end up doing in the true crime world because you don't like what I said about you. That's not going to happen.
Right.
It's just not. And it would, but going through that journey, I think people don't realize how strenuous and how hard that journey is sometimes, especially when you're working on a case like that had so many different layers to it. And like you do with cold cases, we work several of those ourselves, and we've worked, we're working with Todd Matthews from, NamUs now that he's not.
Sure.
But, he wants to do some missing person stuff with us. And I think we're going to do some stuff with Joseph, Scott Morgan. And,
I think a whole lot of both of them. Of course, Joe Scott's from my town. I mean, we work together.
I love him. He is such a doll. Just a doll.
I could listen to his voice. Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, I could listen to him talk.
I know. But I think
voice author books.
I think people don't realize what it's like to go through that process of trying to really put together the pieces of a crime, Well,
when I was about 26, I guess, I got to work with a guy that's probably one of the smartest investigators I've ever worked with, John Cross. And John Cross said to me, he said, Sheryl, there's two things in this business you got to look out for. He said, one, is when you get a case and you know exactly what happened to that victim. Because you got to live with that.
Right.
And he said the second thing is,
It's time to center mental health in Omaha. At Community Alliance, we're building a new center at 72nd and Mercy Road so that anyone seeking help for their mental health can access the personalized care they need to flourish. Support our campaign at mentalhealthomaha.org.
Calling all night owls. When you've got the After Dark munchies, Amigos is here for you to satisfy your late night cravings. Put your hunger to bed with Amigos' new 8 to close specials. Only $5 for 2 crisp meat burritos, 2 cheesy burritos, or 1 of each, for those who can't decide. You heard right. 2 of our favorite late night sellers, crisp meats or cheesies for just $5. Head to Amigos, where flavor never sleeps.
when you don't have any idea what happened to that victim.
Right.
And it's true. I mean, both of those things will eat at you. If you know exactly, they hung her upside down, they drowned her in Clorox, they set her on fire. I mean, you know what she went through.
Right.
That will keep you up at night.
Yep.
If you can't find her and you don't know, that's going to keep you up at night too.
Right.
And it's really the truth. But I have to brag on y'all, because when you accept the process and you are willingly able to take the facts, not your opinion, not what you wanted the ending to be, but truly accept it and say, okay, this is what it is.
Right.
Whether I'm heartbroken or not over it. I think that speaks unbelievably well of y'all.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Like, that was one of the first things I said when I went down. I met with Gypsy's family, and I sat with her dad and her stepmom on the porch, and I said, I'm going to explain something to you right now. I'm not here for the story that you want to tell, or that Gypsy wants to tell, or that Nicholas John wants to tell. I'm not here for any of that. I'm here for the actual whole story. Good, bad, ugly. Good, bad, ugly. And if it comes down to a point where you don't like something that is coming out, I'm sorry, it's still going to come out. And they were fine, but I think they really, truly believed that they could still steer a narrative with us. And we just wouldn't do it. You know, we just wouldn't. And I won't.
But, you know, there's a lot of podcasts that would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there are, and that was just something we weren't willing to do. And we took a lot of hit for that. You know, from a lot of people, we took a beating on that. But it also, like you just said, in the true crime world, it really placed us in a position that every person that's talked to us about it and heard what we do, and then where we're at now, you know, as 4 or 5 years later, you know, now, they respect what we went through. But that's the true crime people. But when you look at the audience, you know, some people are like, I can't believe, well, you know, I'm sorry, it's not what you wanted, but it is the truth, and it is what happened, and here's everything, you know. So it was rough, but that's just something that we chose. We weren't gonna falter on that, and you know, that's the path that we're gonna walk on any case that we talk about. You know, if even if it goes against what we believed, you know, like, or what we wanted, you know, we got hit for it when we were reporting on the Gannon Stout case that was just, you know, recently done, because people were mad. One, that the case on YouTube, we call it Gone Cold. That's what our missing person and unsolved is. It's not that, you know, that's the name of the series. And so as soon as we put that on there, people were very upset because, well, it's not a cold case. I said, but that's not what we're saying. It's just part of our missing persons thing. And then we got hit for saying, you know, right away that we believed that
Leticia did it.
Leticia did it, and we knew the outcome. And people were like, you don't know. I'm like, I can look at facts and tell you what I can tell you. Like, there are facts in this case that are undeniable. You can't deny these things. I'm sorry. I wish it was a different outcome, but I'm going to tell you what, it's not going to be.
And it wasn't.
And it wasn't. You know, like, you can wish in one hand and want in the other, but it doesn't make it true.
Yeah,
you know?
that whole case is pretty much DV 101. I mean, it's right out of the stepmother playbook.
There's way too many. There's been way too many stepmother and mother issues happening right now. We got Evelyn Boswell. We have Leticia. We had the Lisa Snyder case that we covered. And then Lori Vallow.
That case is just insane.
Yeah, it is insane.
It is
again, these people are not what you would consider a natural born killer, so to speak. They're not a contract killer. They're not somebody that's killed multiple times and crafted themselves. So they're going to make so many mistakes. And just like in Gannon's, case, you can't clean that blood up.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
no matter how good, no matter how good you try,
right?
You can try all you want, it ain't gonna happen.
And then her story is so stupid.
Oh, her story was insane, and people are like, "Well, she's not been charged as a suspect." I go, do you know how the law enforcement works? They're not just going to come out and say it on day one. Like, then they wouldn't have any way to get evidence. Like,
well, and when they arrested and charged her, like, we were like, they have the body. They know.
Of course. Yeah. And when I was talking to Nancy Grace, about that case, and I said, he'll be wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
That she described him missing in. So she was absolutely the last person to see him alive.
Right.
Period. There's nobody else. And she's got all these bizarre answers for the reason there's blood in the carport. He hit his head on the driveway.
Right.
Kidnapped off his bicycle. No, I was raped in the car. No, he went to a friend's. I mean, baby. I mean, that's, as an investigator, that's insulting to me.
Oh God, yeah. Like, it's so funny before I got into true crime, I've always done research. I've always investigated things, but I wasn't like a researcher or investigator, by profession or anything. But I used to tell my kids that there was 3 things. Because I was an actor, I told them 3 different things. I said, first of all, never lie to a professional liar. Okay. I'm an actress for profession. And so, like, don't lie to me because I'm going to know, because I do it for a living. Like, so that's one. Number 2 was don't insult me with a shitty lie. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable, plausible, and intelligent. Okay.
Yeah. Make me work for it.
Make me work for it. Right. And then the third one was, when you're caught, you're caught. You don't keep lying, because at that point, no one's going to ever believe anything you have to say after that. So that was the 3 rules of lying. And my kids swore by it, because they knew Mom is not going to let us get away with this. And that was how I felt like with Leticia, and standing out there, and the audacity to stand and say that the American public is going to give her an apology, and the Al is going to apologize to her at the end. That spoke to me in volumes. I was like, this bitch, I'm like, holy crap, I can't with her. I was very upset. And that case just made me so mad, because I had never really seen somebody that way, like her, just stand there and point blank, just say, I'm going to get an apology from all of this. Are you? Wow.
Right.
Wow.
My other favorite is when she brought her older daughter into it.
Yes.
Ask her where we were. Ask her what I was
poor
doing.
Girl. I felt so bad for that poor girl.
Oh my God.
Well, that daughter's still not like talking about, like, telling the truth about it, like, and it's like, baby, baby,
there's a thing called obstruction, and I think somebody needs to explain it to her. And she can be charged too.
I know.
Yes.
If you bought all those cleaning supplies, and before that ever happened, how he was treated. You know that you and your younger sister were treated much differently. So you can be an accessory after the fact.
Yep, exactly.
My mom lives on that military base, and she's friends with Landon, the actual mom. And the whole community has been hit like a rock with that case. And I have a little sister, half-sister, who's the same age as Gannon. I haven't talked with her if she went to school with him, but it's a heartbreaking case. I feel like every case is a heartbreaking case in a different way.
They are, absolutely. Well stated.
It's everybody's got a family. Everybody has friends. When we were talking with Todd Matthews about, and we did the story of Tent Girl, about how even if somebody is unidentified or somebody is missing, everybody was born to someone. Even if they are in the system and don't know their biological parents, somebody at some point has looked after that child for a certain period of time.
Sure.
People knew them. Even the oh, what is that case? I talk about it all the time. The mom and dad locked up like all 13 of their children.
Turpins.
Yes, the
Mhm.
Turpins. Like they
Yep.
still like they have family who had,
Right.
like knew something was off. So it's we talk about a lot of different cases, but you kind of specifically go into the cold cases. So what drew you to cold cases?
Well, about 1998, I started working cold cases for the Sheriff's Department in Spalding County. And so our group, that's what we did. And I just really felt like all of my experience was best suited to work cold cases because I have a little bit of a lot of stuff. So this was a nice place to kind of showcase some of those things. So I've got a little statement analysis, I got a little probation, got a little corrections, got a little sheriff's department, got a little police department, got a little CSI. So this was the place where I felt like, you know, I could kind of bob and weave through a case pretty good. And our squad there, we all worked cases in a different method, but if we got to the same result, we knew good and well we were right. So like Betsy Ramsey, she likes to start with witness statements. And Leslie Bailey, she likes to start with the police report. Well, I always feel like the photographs are the closest to the truth that I'm going to get.
Right.
Because if the police have it wrong and the witness has it wrong, I really don't care what they think or what they have to say yet. I'm not there yet. I want to kind of see it for myself. And then I'm extraordinarily visual. So I want to go walk it.
Right.
And what becomes important to me is not just the scene itself. That's uber important. But let's say you've got a field and this woman was murdered and thrown in this field. Are there any woods? Is it an apartment complex nearby? Is it a church nearby? Is it a liquor store nearby? Is it a strip club nearby? Is it an elementary school? I want to know, like from a drone view, what is now around me? What is the way in? What's the way out? Because that's going to tell me the who a whole lot faster.
Right. Sure.
And so that's me. But the three of us worked so great together. And then at the Institute, we still do. And with what the Institute, the way we have it set up is we have about 30 colleges across the United States. And each college has a professor with a different area of discipline. That person takes their students through the case in that discipline. So I may have a criminal profiler with 30 criminal profiling students that can work one case.
Wow.
Then I might have the same thing for blood splatter or the same thing for trajectory and the same thing for, you know, antemortem. It depends on, you know, what we need. So I get that expert involved that is pertinent to that case. And we all work it at the same time, but we work it independently.
Sure.
And we kind of get together. And again, if we all point to the same person, I can stake my reputation that we're right.
Right. Have you seen the new show on CBS called Interrogation?
I have not.
Okay, so it's super interesting. I try to watch at least all the different crime stuff, at least a little bit of it, just to kind of see what's out there. I'd less now than I did before because I report on so much stuff that I don't get time to watch things. And, you know, like we all talk about this, like people think that that's all we sit and do. And I'm like, dude, at some point in time, I got to turn on Masked Singer because I just got to get away from the darkness of shit, you know. But this one was interesting to me because it actually talks about how a cold case investigation is done. And it says that a cold case investigator does not follow the same path trajectory as the original investigators. They basically take whatever piece of evidence they feel like is a piece of evidence that they want to look at, and they go with that piece of evidence, and that's what they're looking at to begin with. Because to follow the same trajectory, you would probably end up at the same conclusion or the same point, or actually end up in the same stopping point, which I thought was super interesting. So that show, basically, it's a true crime show. But it's scripted, so it's, you know, it's fictionalized. But You can watch the episodes in any order depending on what you want to follow. So I think it's 10 episodes altogether. You watch the first, then it tells you to watch any of the others in any order, and then you watch the 10th, of course, because you're done, right? And I just thought that was an interesting approach, because I had never really thought about, we look at the cases that way too, and I guess we just instinctively look at it but
Right.
I had never thought about how a cold case person dissects it that way, not following the same path. So I thought that was super interesting.
Well, I will tell you, the way you work a cold case is probably going to be what you just said, instinctive for you.
Right.
So one of the very first cold cases we had, it was a double homicide.
It's time to center mental health in Omaha. At Community Alliance, we're building a new center at 72nd and Mercy Road so that anyone seeking help for their mental health can access the personalized care they need to flourish. Support our campaign at mentalhealthomaha.org.
Calling all night owls. When you've got the After Dark munchies, Amigos is here for you to satisfy your late night cravings. Put your hunger to bed with Amigos' new 8 to close specials. Only $5 for 2 crisp meat burritos, 2 cheesy burritos, or 1 of each, for those who can't decide. You heard right. 2 of our favorite late night sellers, crisp meats or cheesies for just $5. Head to Amigos, where flavor never sleeps.
And I thought the money tree, after looking at the photographs, was a knife that was found in the backyard. So this was a shotgun house, the front door and back door line up. The male was stabbed and killed right in the front doorway. Then he comes into the house. The female was stabbed right in the front of the bedroom. And then right out the back door, there's a bloody knife. I mean, how the hell is this cold? I mean, what in the world, right? So then when you get to the report says the blood on the knife came back animal, not human. Well, that's where the original investigator stopped. Well, I understand why they would stop, because they're told something. But for our group, we said retest the knife. I mean, it happens, right?
Right.
It's not to say he didn't go outside and kill her dog too, but test all of it. And then, of course, it came back, his DNA, hers DNA, and the killer's DNA, and the dog. So, again, even though I want to take a different path, if the clear and true right path was their path, it's okay to take that too.
Right. Now, why would it come back like that? Just out of curiosity,
If they took one little swab and the only swab was the animal, that's the only one that hit.
Wow.
I mean, that's why, again, something like the MVAT is so much more important than just getting a little dab of the wet blood off a knife. You want everything,
Right.
You want as much as you can get. It's just so important. And as a crime scene investigator, I collect things that I don't even know if they're important yet or if they'll ever be important. But I will take it because I may figure it out later. So
we do the same
for
thing.
Example, so if I go in the house and I see, a Playboy, take it. I don't know if they watch porn or look at porn or have this subscription or where they got it from. I'll figure that out later, but take it.
Yes,
so
because
it's important.
Right, because you don't know if you're going to need it later, and if you left it there, and then it's
But some people,
open.
They like to go into a shooting scene, and there's the, shell casings, and there's some blood, and there's the gun. We're good. Let's leave. No, get the mail. Look in the refrigerator. Look in the trash can.
Right. Yeah.
We did that.
We're here. Let's have the party. Right.
With the Lisa Snyder case, because she hadn't been arrested for a period of time after the kids had been hung, that she was like posting on the internet and different Facebook groups and creating alternate profiles. And so we saved all of everything she said because we were like, this lady is crazy. She's so dumb.
Yeah.
Right.
But we also, but on the flip side of that, we had somebody come to us too on the Evelyn Boswell case. It was really hilarious because they came to us and they're like, did you know that Maggie Boswell was in one of your true crime discussion groups? And we were like, no, we didn't know. We don't know all the people that are in our discussion group. What are you talking about? And so we looked at it and we like, okay, we've confirmed that she was in our discussion group. Sure, that's fine. And so then somebody was like, have you looked at anything that she looked at and da-da-da and blah, blah, blah. And we were like, okay, but look, the group that you're talking about was a group that was specifically dedicated to discussing Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So unless she was abusing this child and using Munchausen by proxy as an excuse, I don't see how anything that she's doing in there is relevant. And she never commented on anything. She didn't do anything. Like, did you turn it over to the police? And I'm like, for what reason? Like, we think this might be a big thing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you, I will let authorities know, but no, I do not think this is going to be the big break in the case, folks. I really don't. I'm sorry. Like,
this is not it.
This is not it. She wasn't doing anything in there and she wasn't taking anything. They're like, well, maybe she was plotting. I'm like, well, she joined, after things had happened. So it was just so funny to us. But I thought that was so interesting that somebody was so concerned about it. And I was like, well, I mean, I get it. I understand. But this time,
Sure.
no, not on this one, So
Right.
Well, we have this case that I find super, super fascinating. And I kind of want your opinion on this case and kind of what makes it cold cases difficult for local police departments.
Mm-hmm.
We covered the Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman case in Oklahoma, where we think things kind of got botched from the beginning. Do you know about that case?
I don't, but I mean,
so
I may if I saw their faces, like I may.
So the girls are currently still missing. It happened.
Young white females.
Yes. They were high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
So the scene was cleared in less than 12 hours. And then the parents of Laura Bible went to the scene looking through the burned down rubble of their house. It was completely to the ground. And they actually found Ashley's parents' bodies. And so
there was a house that was burned to the ground and authorities didn't find bodies.
So
Correct.
Okay, so have you seen it's the show that was done on it was called Hell in the Heartland, and it was covered
No,
by,
I have not.
Okay.
I have not seen that.
So
but let me just go ahead and throw something.
Mm-hmm.
And I know y'all don't know me, but I try really hard not to Monday morning quarterback or slam law enforcement because I was not there. I mean, I wasn't there.
Right.
But I will say, normally when you have a scene like that, you have fire, arson, and you have investigators, and you have insurance people that all come to the scene, and everybody has their own investigator. Were these people supposed to be in the house or not known to be in the house? Like, they didn't know if anybody was a victim in the house.
So what happened was apparently that they thought that potentially Ashley's father may have taken the girls. They didn't know where the mom was. They kind of didn't know if it was, they assumed it was an arson because the whole thing had been burned to the ground in less than 24 hours. And even the Oklahoma Department of Investigations was there at the scene.
OSBI?
Yes. And they looked around. They didn't, I guess, look around that specifically, and they turned the scene over to the friends and family, and they just kind of went looking around in the rubble to see if there was anything that they could find, because they were kind of annoyed that they had already cleared the scene. Like, things were still smoldering. And they looked in what was the bedroom, and they found Ashley's parents in what would have been the waterbed. And it wasn't just bones, there were bodies.
Right.
And they're the ones who found him and had to call the police again. And I just can't that had to be so traumatizing for them. But then it was like, okay, well, the parents are dead.
All right, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to answer your question with a story.
Do it.
I worked an arson case with OSBI.
Ooh.
And so they bring me out over Thanksgiving. And so I took my husband and my children because it was over Thanksgiving, and I thought this will be cool. We'll just take our time to drive out there and see some cool parts of America on the way out and back, and swing through Texas and have some fun,
Yeah.
We get to the scene, and at the time my daughter was 6, and the house completely burned to the ground, and the husband had kept it intact because he wanted help, because he was convinced his wife was murdered, and OSBI was convinced that the dog wagging its tail had knocked over a candle, and that's what had burned the house down. So we get there, and it's a beautiful ranch. I mean, the land is just spectacular. My children, being from Georgia, we have a lot of trees, and this was a lot of land. So they found that fascinating. And I told them, I said, well, I've got to work for just a little bit, but you can walk with me. And so my children were walking with me. We did the whole thing. They did it right. They stayed right beside me. All of a sudden, my 6-year-old daughter, with the OSBI and the victim's son and husband and best friend, she picks up a watch. And at 6 years old, she said, Mama, is this relevant? And I said, yeah, I think that's relevant, because I'm pretty sure it's hers, her watch, right? And so it probably took the house less than 30 minutes to be completely engulfed. So you subtract 30 minutes from when the watch, stopped working, you got a pretty good idea that's right, at the time of death, right? That makes sense. And then my son is like, well, look at this. He literally finds a handgun. And the only part that had been burned up, of course, was the wooden handle. The rest of it was completely intact. And at that point, I looked at the agent, and I'm like, seriously? It's a 6 and 8-year-old, dude. I mean, this is in the master bedroom, what would have been the master bedroom. This is where she was killed, incidentally face down on the master bed. Her hips and legs were off the bed, spread eagle, as though she had been sexually assaulted. I mean, so here's the thing. Again, I don't want a Monday morning quarterback. I'm not slamming anybody. I'm not saying anything negative. I'm really not. And I want you to understand that. We've all had scenes that you get overwhelmed by something. Right. I had a double homicide scene where the woman is completely nude and beat to death. Dude is on the sofa, completely dressed. Socks, shoes, belt, the whole bit. He's got a single stab wound to the chest. And he's sitting on the sofa. If you didn't know he was dead, he just looks like he's taking a nap watching the ball game, right? Mm-hmm. But hanging out of his pants was the female end of an extension cord that ran all the way down his pants leg, with the male end of the extension cord hanging out the pants leg. Mm-hmm. I could not get off of that. I'd never seen it. I didn't know what it was about. I'm like, who would carry an extension cord like that? Like, what is the point? They're not tied up. I mean, I just kept on, and I kept on and kept on. And finally, my captain goes, Mac, do you not see 2 dead people in this room? I'm like, you're right. There is some more important things going on. So I'm only saying that because a scene can be overwhelming, even a small part. Okay.
Sure. Very true.
So I just want to put that in the universe. I'm not saying anything, but arson scenes are difficult, but you should literally go to Home Depot, buy you a screen door, and sift through as much of it as you can before you leave there. And you certainly, I can't imagine, wouldn't find 2 victims on a waterbed. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about it.
Well, I think that many times, I think that local police many times, especially if it's a small town or a town that doesn't have a lot of crime, I think that they're, like you said, they're overwhelmed, or they're under, they don't know. They don't even know how to handle some of these cases,
This particular case, the guy that pulled lead in 2 days was leaving for Iraq. I get it. An accident is cut, dry, done. I'm out of here. I understand that.
Right.
But that family deserves more. And if you have to pass it off to somebody else to finish with, then that's what you have to do.
Right.
That is very true.
But, we all know I mean, you have a daughter that was just trying to make some popcorn. How old is she?
She's 17.
17. Okay. But again, you're going to want to be home prom night to take pictures.
Yes.
No two ways about it. So if somebody goes, oh no, we just caught an arson case. You're going to be like, looks accidental. I got to go. And you'll worry about it the next day.
Right.
There's a human element to it. I mean, we all have birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas and different things we want to be at, graduations and, you know, children being born and everything else. And there's things we want to do. But, you know, sometimes you just have to say, hey, if it's not me, then I need to make sure it's the right person taking over for me. And if it has to be me, then we're going to celebrate Christmas the 28th.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think we get that kind of attitude when we're talking and we laugh about things or we get frustrated. And when we were talking about the Gypsy case, you know, we laughed a lot and we cried and we got angry and there was different emotions because we were so close to it. Like, and at some point in time, when you look at such absurd shit all day long, every day, you're like, you have to eventually laugh at some of that absurd shit. And maybe to other people, it may not seem completely appropriate, but in the moment, that's exactly how you feel because you're looking at it and you're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Like, I can't believe what I've looked at. And then, you know, you talk to the next person and you go, hey, do you see this? Like, how is this even possible? You know, so I think a lot of times people forget that, like you said, we're humans, you know, those of us that deal with this, we're a very interesting type of person, especially for those that take it on at the level that all of us take it on at, you know, like, it's one thing to sit on your couch and watch Dateline every week and be like, that's my show. I love Dateline. I watch it every week. I just love Keith Morrison and his voice. And it's one thing to be that. It's even another thing to be the person who is obsessed with Investigation Discovery and be like, that is it. I love Investigation Discovery. It's all I watch. And there's a whole other thing when you take a case and you pull it all apart. You know, and you put it back together and you look at it and you think and then you live, breathe and eat it, you know, and it haunts you and it's what keeps you, like you said, what keeps you up at night and you're laying in your bed going, but what about that piece of paper I just saw? What does that really mean? Like I looked through 3,000 pictures today. Which one hit me the most? You know, when you're sitting there and we're looking at that, like we were looking at thousands and thousands of medical files, you know, and when you start beginning to see how absolutely utterly ridiculous her medical files were, you do begin to laugh at it because you're so frustrated that the only thing you can do is begin to laugh, you know, and we're humans. And whether, you know, like, I think people forget that we get wrapped up in these things so deeply on so many levels. It just, there's cases that haunt you. And so is there a cold case that hasn't been solved that haunts you?
Oh, sugar, yeah. There's a lot of them. I tell you the ones that haunt me in no particular order, but the ones where you know good and well who did it and can't prove it.
I know. Yes.
The ones that I still really don't have a clue. I'm just baffled, and I know that the killer is not that smart. Baffles me. Like, we've got people in the Institute, Claire Farley being one of them. She's a prosecutor in Savannah, Georgia. She literally is a member of Mensa. So when I say she's a genius, I'm not kidding. So if she's baffled and I'm baffled and everybody else is baffled, it just irritates me. Like, I know this person is not that smart. It's just we're missing something probably so elementary. And that's kind of things, you know, bug me. But the other thing people don't understand sometimes is this business is fascinating and it's intriguing. And that's not insulting to the victim. No. It's just a reality. It's just a fact. So sometimes if I have a case like Marriage Shotwell Little that's just so intriguing, it should be a made-for-TV movie. It just is that. Right. And again, I have to accept it. And because of that, you know, people want to work on it. You know, I've you know, Bricola Coleman. So one other thing that we didn't really talk about, I have more than one job like everybody in this business, I guess. And, you know, obviously y'all know I'm on Nancy's show and I do the Cold Case Institute and I'm a crime scene investigator. But there's a lady by the name of Karen Greer. And Karen is an award-winning anchor at our CBS affiliate, CBS 46 Atlanta.
I saw you post about her.
Okay. She is super cool people. I mean, y'all would love to talk to her. And so she called me about 10 months ago and said, hey, I want to start highlighting some of these cold cases on the news. What do you think about that? I said, I think it's awesome. I think TV is one of the best tools any cold case investigator can utilize. I mean,
sure. No, absolutely.
And she said, okay, well, come meet with me. So I went down, I met with her and Natasha Lee and Rand and Youngbauer and some other folks. And when it was all said and done, they said, no, we want you to be a part of it. And we want you to be our very own crime scene investigator for the news. And so I said, okay, that sounds groovy, but we got to really work on it if we're going to do it. I mean, I can't, I'm not an anchor. I'm not a media person. So that's the other thing that we've started to do with CSI Atlanta, which has been phenomenal for me because there's been so many of these cases that I haven't had an avenue to get them any real publicity. Well, now I've got a solid 4 minutes, which is forever on TV.
Yes.
So that's the other good thing. So some of these cases that have really bugged me for a long time, I at least now get a fourth quarter push on them. So I feel better thanks, to what they're doing.
So what do you think about so one of the things that we've had people say and do, and when we're trying to highlight these cases or talk about them and saying that we only, how dare we profit off a tragedy, or how dare we do this and do it and talk about these cases this way. It's interesting to me because they are people who are following us because they want to hear about the cases, but then they'll turn on you in a dime and say that the only reason that you're doing it is to make money, which we don't make any money right now, just to be honest with anybody. We don't make money. But what do you think about that in them saying, the media or these YouTubers or podcasters or anybody who turns it into like a scripted series or is just doing it to profit? I mean, what does that make you feel like? Because we're not doing it for any of those reasons, but we get accused of that often. And so I was thinking about that 4 minute span, like what we're doing is so important.
I'm gonna answer it for you. I would be curious to know what they're doing for free. That same victim. That's number one, because they're welcome to do it. They can take their own time and their own money and their own resources and help anybody they want. So if they're not doing that, they shouldn't be throwing no stone anyhow. And number two, the Cold Case Institute is a nonprofit. We have over 600 experts, 600. Joe Scott Morgan being one of them. Stephen David Lampley, Karen Smith.
I just signed up for Stephen's serial profiling.
Right on.
Serial killer profiling case. Yeah.
But you're talking about somebody like Dr. Lillian Glass. I mean, you're talking about people that make hundreds of dollars an hour that have never been paid a dime.
Right.
So a lot of times people assume, oh, you're just doing this for the money. What money?
Right. What money? Yeah.
That's the reason I still go to work every day at my regular job, because this is no money.
Right. Well, this is so funny is that, we, like you said, we all have our own regular jobs, like, up until this, I got laid off, but I was still hosting at a restaurant, a couple of days a week. But
let me be clear. If y'all end up making $1 million off this thing, God love you.
Right.
What's wrong with that? Because here's the thing. You've got the heart for it anyway. Money only makes you more of what you already are.
Right.
So y'all are doing this because you love it, you're passionate about it, and you believe it's the right thing to do. If you had $1 million, think what you could do.
Right.
So I say go ahead.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I thought it was so interesting though, but it was the same people that were saying, well, you're just doing it for money. And then they found out that I was still working my regular job. And they're like, see, she's nothing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so am I doing it for money or am I nothing? Because I'm still a hostess at a restaurant during the day sometimes, Like,
Well,
they don't, I think they think
yeah.
like you get one deal and you're a millionaire, you know, and I'm like, honey, you don't work that way. We work for pennies on the dollar sometimes, you know, I mean, I'm like, how about you show up to work for 3 years for no pay every single day, working your ass off for hours and hours and hours, and then go home and be like, well, I didn't get paid today, but I know someday I will. But you're not, you don't know someday you will. So it's interesting. And I just thought that was funny that, you know, that people would say things like that. And it's but then I think
those people, I mean, I can't even entertain that. There would be no way even.
It was hilarious to us because I'm like, but you're here. Like, so obviously you watch true crime. Do you think Dateline people don't get paid? Like, you know, I'm like, did you think the people who report the news don't get paid? I mean, I don't understand. Do you think lawyers don't get paid?
Nancy Grace should be paid.
Absolutely.
And Bremner should be paid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
no, it's okay.
The last thing I was trying to say before my battery went out was,
that's what I thought.
Same people, don't they get paid at their job?
Right.
I mean, this is your job. You just have more than one.
Right.
So again, there's always going to be naysayers, but and y'all also mentioned getting threats. So I'll tell you how to deal with that at the Institute. Everything is fan mail. That's what we call it.
Yes.
So you just have fan mail. That's all it is.
That's right.
And the more threats you get, and the more negative, you know, feedback and all that you get, the more you ought to know, sugar, you're doing something good. Right.
That's where we came to the conclusion of, and I thought I started saying, well, love me or hate me, you're still watching me. So, you know, you know, and it reminds me, and this is such a funny thing. I've said this millions of times, but okay. So back in the day, Howard Stern, when he was on one of the radio stations, you know, and the producer wanted to get him off, he hated him. And he's, you know, he was looking at the numbers, and the guy came in with the numbers, and he's like, what do the numbers say? And he says, okay, well, the average Howard Stern listener that likes Howard Stern listens for an hour and a half. And he said, okay, but what about those that don't like? He says, well, here's the thing. The people that hate Howard Stern, they listen for 2.5 hours, and both give the same answer. They want to know what he's going to say next, you know? So we thought the same way. We've gotten to the point where we're like, okay, that's fine. But obviously for you to be so angry about something I'm doing, you're watching what I'm doing, you know? So I don't know, you know, and some of those people we had that they've turned, you know, and they're like, wow, we really didn't know what we were saying before. I'm like, oh, well, it's all right, you know? But it's you know, it's funny. But I also think about my husband when I was going through all this, and a lot of it was bothering me in the beginning because I just hadn't dealt with anything like that, like just total hatred for anything I was saying or doing, you know. And he said, you know, Joe Rogan has the #1 podcast in America, honey, and he tells you never look at the damn comments, like they're brutal.
No, I agree with that. Yeah,
don't look at them. Just don't look.
Kind of saying earlier. I mean, I just don't have any time for that.
Yeah, no. So what can the average citizen do to help out with cold cases? Because we've got, you know, so many people now that think they're internet sleuths and do, you know, all these different things. You've got Body Moving from, you know, and them that ended up helping with that. But what can the average person do that doesn't impede what you guys are doing?
Well, I tell this all the time, and a lot of really prominent detectives don't love it when I say it, but it's the truth. The average citizen can solve a cold case. Anybody can. And it happens all the time. I mean, it was an English or history teacher that cracked the first Zodiac code, right?
Yes.
The truck driver that found the DC sniper. I mean, it just happened.
Right.
So the most important thing, pay attention. So if somebody says, have you seen this child, and it's somewhere within a 25-mile radius of you, you stand a chance of either knowing it, seeing it, or maybe knowing somebody that knows.
Yeah. It reminds me of a case that's really close to where I am that I'm very invested in, is the Delphi murders. And
absolutely.
You know, and that's exactly what their sheriff said, is like, somebody knows. Like, there is somebody out there who can solve this crime, that can put the nail in the coffin. We just have to find that person, you know?
No question. And y'all, the reality is you're under surveillance more than you know that you are. It's not the way you would frame it, but there's somebody, let's say it's the guy behind the meat counter at your grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
He knows you.
Right.
It's not by name, by sight.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what your husband likes. He knows if you're
Right.
having a party, whatever.
Right.
Your neighbor that maybe you don't talk to 4 times a year knows if you get a new car, knows your child's going to
Sure.
prom, whatever it is.
Sure.
Because watching, they pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the old Bewitched show. Remember Miss Kravitz?
Mm-hmm.
We all have a Miss Kravitz.
Right. We all have a nosy neighbor. Yeah.
We're a nosy neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So I can pretty much tell you on any cold case, 5 people would know.
Mm-hmm.
5.
Calling all night owls. When you've got the After Dark munchies, Amigos is here for you to satisfy your late night cravings. Put your hunger to bed with Amigos' new 8 to close specials. Only $5 for 2 crisp meat burritos, 2 cheesy burritos, or 1 of each, for those who can't decide. You heard right. 2 of our favorite late night sellers, crisp meats or cheesies for just $5. Head to Amigos, where flavor never sleeps.
As a contractor who works in road construction, you wouldn't forget to wear your safety gear on a job site. And you wouldn't forget to stay away from falling debris. And you certainly wouldn't forget to keep heavy equipment away from trench edges. This is just as important. Never dig without calling 811 first. It's not just about the call. It's about saving lives. Know what's below. Call or click 811 each time you dig. Alliant Energy, powering beyond.
Would know something. Either he stopped coming around, he was saying things weird, he started drinking more, he moved away quickly, didn't take any of the stuff, whatever it is, people that are going to know that.
Right.
The other thing is, sometimes law enforcement asks the question incorrectly. They say, did you notice anything unusual yesterday? Well, maybe you didn't. Well, that may not be the right question. Maybe you saw the same van that you see every Wednesday. So to you, that's not unusual, but I don't know what van you're talking about. So you need to be able to recognize, hey, wait a minute. I used to see that van every Wednesday, and since Delphi, I haven't seen it again.
Right. Right.
So, you may know something, and here's what people tend to do, and y'all know this. Oh, I don't want to call them and look stupid. I'm not a detective. They're going to think I'm crazy if I call them and tell them I think it's my ex-husband's cousin. Okay, call them anyway.
Right.
Because if you're the 4th person that's given me that same name, you're on to something, and we got to go talk to that guy.
Right. Right. And it's always somebody, a lot of times it's people who just don't know that they know, they don't know. 90%. And that's what I'm saying about the van. Right. You may not realize what, is so critical. And don't assume law enforcement knows anything. Right. Right. Because those poor detectives with Delphi, oh my God, they need help. They need people to call. They do.
Yes.
They do. Well, that's like the Adam Walsh case. It went unsolved for 27 years, and several people who helped, put that together. And I have people who've told me that, Joe, or that John Matthews is wrong, that it really was Dahmer and it's not Otis. And okay, that's fine, whatever you want to believe. But some of those people said in their interviews when John was talking to them is that, oh, I didn't say anything because I just assumed the police got him. I thought they knew, I didn't know that I needed to say anything because I thought they had already done something, and that happens so often. And I think a lot of times, like you say, people don't call because they're scared or they think that it's irrelevant. Oh, the police must know about that, or they, if they don't know, then it must not be relevant, right? Like, so.
And I have people that say to me, this happens a lot too. Well, I was waiting for y'all to come by and question me.
Well, what were you doing? Oh my goodness.
You call me.
You're not a friend. You live 7 houses down. Why would I just pick your house to think you know something? So and you can even, if you wanted to, you can even caveat and say, I may be crazy. I may not know a thing, but I'm just going to tell you so I can get it off my chest. Tell them.
Right. Right.
Well, and it's not like, job interviews, like, well, don't call us, we'll call you. Like, no, you call me. If I, you call me.
Yep.
And
I'll tell you what, most people, even if you don't want to talk to the detective, if your child's at school and there's a school resource officer, tell him or her. If somebody drives through your neighborhood and you wave at him all the time, flag him down and say, look, this may be stupid, but I used to work with this guy. Would you please tell your detective? Tell somebody.
Right.
Badge on that can get the information to the person.
Yeah, definitely.
well, so the Institute has looked into some of the biggest true crime cases, including the Boston Strangler, Chandra Levy, the assassination of Tupac, and now we kind of hear something about the popular Tiger King in the case of Carole Baskins' missing second husband. Is this true?
It is true. We have been asked by the sheriff in Hillsborough to look at the disappearance of Don Lewis. And let me tell you, the college students have lost their back over it. I mean, Tupac was awesome, and Chandra Levy was awesome, and Boston Strangler was absolutely unbelievable. But, honey, they're so invested in Tiger King, it's not even funny.
Well, you have to, okay, so are we. Like, it's so funny. Like, the first person I saw was on my feed that announced that he was involved in this was Stephen David Lampley. And so within 5 minutes of him investigating, I was in his inbox and I was like, hey, we need to talk. You know, I was like, we got to have you on. I got to know about this. Like, and so within 10
he's on the team.
Right. Within 10 minutes, he messaged me back and he was like, I'd love to. And so we were going into an interview right before that. And I told the girls, I said, I have something really big to tell you. So I got on, with the Zoom with them. And I'm like, oh my God, we just got one of the investigators that's looking into Don Lewis's disappearance, Carole Baskins' first husband. And they were like, oh my God, we were so excited. And then about 10 minutes later is when I asked you. And I was like, and so I got your message back the next day, and I came back on. I'm like, hey, guess what? We're going to talk to the woman who runs the institute that's looking into this. They're like, no way, I can't believe it. And I was like, I'm so excited. And so we've been like trying to figure out how to tease it out there that we're going to do this, because this case is huge, right?
It is huge. And here's the thing. We've put together this team so far, and we're still adding people, but we've got like Peter Hyatt and Karen
I love
Smith.
Peter Hyatt. I love
Oh, my God. Yeah. And Stephen David Lampley, of course, and Joe Scott Morgan, Dr. Lillian Glass. I mean, we've got some premier people on this thing. And
you could just add podcaster Fancy Maselli to that if you'd like.
Oh, do not leave me out.
And podcaster Colleen McShane, okay? Yeah.
I'm an NP student, if that helps.
Well, let me tell you what's really good. When I give an action plan, I try to have a 360. So no matter what direction they want to go in, I've got somebody right there for them. So, like Shane Waters and Levi Page, they are a part of it because when it comes down to it, you've got to have a level of how can I get the word out? How can I say, hey, anybody remember this? Did anybody see this or whatever? So every single media is important, podcasts as well.
Right.
So it is important. And
but
here's the great thing, and I want your audience to know this because I'm new to y'all, so I'm assuming most of them have never heard of me. So I think this is really important. When I say these names, I want to be really clear. And I used to tell the students this too. So at the college, I teach, the Socratic method clearly. And I would tell them all the time, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. Because if I'm not, we have limitations.
Right.
There's a reason I do not homeschool my children. Right. I don't speak a foreign language. I don't play a musical instrument.
Right.
I can't spell and I can't do math. So they would suffer. Now I would give unbelievably fabulous field trips and we would have the time of our lives, but they would suffer academically.
They would just know about serial killers. That's all they would know about.
Oh, let me tell you, my daughter, she's so funny. We love Criminal Minds,
Yes.
And she's got to the point where she can look at it and go, look at that petite eye. She was strangled, so she gets it.
I love it. But it reminds me, like, the smartest businessman in the room is the dumbest businessman because he surrounds himself with people who are smarter than him.
Correct.
You know,
so that's what I wanted your audience to know as I'm
Mhm.
saying these people, and like Dr. Laura Petler and Dr.
Mhm.
Lillian Glass and Dr.
Mhm.
Dwayne Thompson. I ain't got no PhD.
Right.
Okay, listen. The other thing about these people, and I would
Mhm.
put Nancy Grace in the same category because
Right.
Nancy does a ton of stuff for the Institute behind the scenes.
Mhm.
She don't want credit. She don't need the credit, whatever.
Right.
But she's an extraordinary person, and people don't know that about her.
Mhm.
Nancy walked a scene with me not long ago, just like we used to in the day,
Right.
and she helped me tremendous. So I just want people to know that these people, even though some of them may make $325 an hour, have never
Right.
charged me a dime. I
Mhm.
can call them day or night, and they always say, I'm in. What do you need?
Right.
And we have worked some of the greatest cases in the last 50 years. However, we have worked a ton that y'all have never heard of.
Right. Right.
And those
Right.
same people show up just as hard for that.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
So I'm just telling you, they're wonderful. Anybody out there that loves Joe Scott Morgan or Stephen David Lampley or Laura Petler or Karen Smith, you should. They are just that fabulous. So don't take that you've never heard of me as their status.
Right.
It's not. And they
Right.
are brilliant. And I mean, I don't have enough adjectives. I mean, honestly, they're just
Right.
remarkable human beings.
Right. 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 Well, I think that's amazing. And I love what your institute is doing. I think there's just so much that you guys are doing that, is just so important. And like you said, it takes a village to solve these things sometimes, to look at these things sometimes,
Sure.
and it doesn't always take the person that has like you said, the PhD or the whatever. I didn't think much about what I had done with Gypsy Case until somebody else told me what I had done. She's like, "Do you understand all the research that you put together all by yourself, and you're not an investigator. You're not this." She's like, "You are an investigator. You are a researcher, and stop saying you're not, because you are."
Right.
Because I think you should put it all together in a portfolio, and I think you need to go and talk to every single private investigator in your area and get a job as a researcher for them, because you don't have to have a degree to do that, Fancy. You just have to have an eye for it, and sometimes like we said, that's what happens is things get taken that way. And I'm so thankful for what you guys do.
Everybody has a gift. Everybody.
Right.
Everybody. And some people have hidden it. Some people won't use it, but they have a gift.
Right.
They do. And anybody can help on a criminal investigation. And everybody has some type of expertise. So again, if I am working a murder of somebody that's in an orchestra, I've already told you I don't play an instrument.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a big deal there wasn't music on the piano. Does she not need music? Does she play by ear? I don't know. I've got to have somebody tell me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think, we've been doing this solely since 2004. Okay. I've only had one person tell me no.
Right.
One. And the reason that person told me no is they were running for a judgeship at the time and could not. Literally could not.
Right.
But everybody else, what can I do?
Right.
Carl Marino. You know Carl Marino from Homicide Hunter?
Yes.
Okay, that child couldn't do any more for me.
Yeah.
I mean, he drove to Atlanta. He did a wine and crime with me. He made a donation so we could test something with the MVAT.
Right.
I mean, give me a break.
I love that Stephen. So, I told you I just signed up for Stephen David Lampley's serial killer profiling class. And I just signed up for it originally before I even looked into, what his little institute does, his university thing does. I didn't realize what he did. And when I started looking at it, I was so impressed by the fact that this was for people who don't give a shit about having a degree at the end. Like, because that's one of the things I'm up against. I wasted all of my financial aid. I can't go back to school and get a degree in what I would like to get my degree in at this point. I screwed up. I was young. I screwed up, and So now, based on the fact of like, financial aid, I can't get Pell Grant anymore. I've maxed out my loans, all of those things. I can't go get the degree that I want. And that makes me sad. But then I stumbled across Stephen's thing, and I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is for me. Oh my God.
Right.
It was the most amazing thing to think there are things out there, and through this quarantine, I've been taking a couple of free classes on forensic psychology through Purdue University and through other things. And they were free classes. And I was like, oh my God. So yes, it doesn't matter at the end of this to me. I don't care about the piece of paper. I want the knowledge. I want to know how to do what I'm doing. I want to be better at what I do. And these are people who will make me better at those things,
It's so funny you said that, because you could go and get a degree from somewhere and never have a professor at his level.
Right. No. And this is one of those things. I think that, a degree is wonderful, but I don't think it's 100% necessary, because you can't teach instinct.
Calling all night owls. When you've got the After Dark munchies, Amigos is here for you to satisfy your late night cravings. Put your hunger to bed with Amigos' new 8 to close specials. Only $5 for 2 crisp meat burritos, 2 cheesy burritos, or 1 of each, for those who can't decide. You heard right. 2 of our favorite late night sellers, crisp meats or cheesies, for just $5. Head to Amigos, where flavor never sleeps.
The Sonic 2 for $7 deal lets you choose from the Sonic Cheeseburger, Chicken Sandwich, or Footlong Chili Cheese Coney. Any 2 for $7. So you can mix and match a deliciously melty Sonic Cheeseburger and a crispy chicken sandwich with the perfect amount of pickles. Or you can pair that brioche-topped chicken sandwich with the Footlong Chili Cheese Coney you've been craving. Either way, you'll get 2 mouthwatering Sonic items for 1 great price. It might be the greatest pairing since cherry and limeade. Sonic 2 for $7 deal. Tax not included. See menu for details. Limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Nope. You can't teach those things, those hardwired things inside of you to go, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make any damn sense. What am I looking at here? You don't teach that. That is something inside of you. So now, can you give us any insight on your feelings or other professional feelings about the Carole Baskins case? I know you guys, we have our feelings, and I know y'all haven't gotten into it yet, but what do you feel about it that you can tell us?
Well, I want to be real clear that it's the Don Lewis.
Right. Don Lewis case. Yes.
But for me, again, there's 2 things we do. The first thing we do, we call it an orbit. And it's just a quick trip around the case as we know it. We have not done the deep dive into every report.
Sure.
Every photograph. So with that in mind, there is right now no reason for me to believe, number one, that he's alive. There's also no reason to believe that he took a powder, that he went and just wanted to live with some mistress somewhere in Costa Rica. I think that's a sexy story. I just don't think it happened.
It is a sexy story.
Yeah, but there's no evidence that it happened.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Kind of there. A man will leave his wife. A man will leave his wife and kids. A man might even ditch the mistress. But I've never known a millionaire to leave his money. Ever.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Just, I don't need it anymore. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm good. No.
Especially somebody who everybody knew likes his money.
Right.
Cares about the money.
Right.
Right.
I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it'll be intriguing, and hopefully we're going to be able to help them move the case forward in some way.
Right. Right.
And with the team of people that we have, I don't think that is a stretch. I think it's doable. I mean, we even have a geographical profiler that's chomping at the bit. We got, like I said, Hyatt and some really extraordinary people. I mean, McGregor, I want him to do the geo profile because I want to, because it's going to be a straight line, I think.
Right.
But
do you think that the only reason that case got relooked at was because of the Netflix special, or do you think that that was something those investigators had thought about for a long time?
Well, I talked to the sheriff, several times, and he is old school, hardcore, solid dude. I mean, he knew the case from when he was, a deputy. That department constantly reviews, constantly is looking at, constantly is saying, hey, what can we go back and try? This was never something that's not on their radar, but this has certainly put it on the top of the pile, so to speak.
Sure.
I mean, I feel like that's what a lot of media is. A good thing about the media is that it really does bring other cases to light or to the, forefront. I mean, every day there are thousands of deaths and disappearances that are suspicious that nobody knows about. But when the media then covers it and then it goes national and worldwide media, then everybody's like, Don Lewis, somebody look at that case.
Yeah. The other reality is you've got these people that are also calling with their theories and their idea of how to solve it. Well, you can't ignore that either. If you've got, 30 people calling a day on the same case. So you've got to start doing something with it.
Right.
But, it's important for people to know if you're just calling because you have a theory, be sure you're not wasting somebody's valuable time.
Right.
Because he still has to run that down.
Yeah, exactly. You have to run every theory, every call, everything. And that's one of the things, I think about, I don't know if you know about it, but the Alyssa Turney case, Sarah Turney, Voices for Justice. That was what was told to her, was the only way you're going to get this case to be looked at is to go to the media and get a lot of attention and put the pressure on for the right people to come forward to prosecute, investigate,
I'm
whatever.
one of the people that told her that.
And I love her, and we interviewed her a while back, and we haven't aired that yet because we're going to do like a whole 4 or 5 part series on that case and what, we're looking at. But I mean, I think these things are necessary. And that's, going back to saying, well, you guys are just doing it for this. No, look what it's doing. I mean, now Don Lewis's case is being looked at again. Alyssa Turney's cases, you hear it, even Jody Hughes and Truitt, who for 25 years, they haven't solved. People are starting to talk about it again. The Springfield 3, So I think that doing this is the only way that some of those cases are going to get heard again. And like you said, if people don't help with that Delphi, it could go cold just like everybody else. They need help. Yeah. These are people that need help. And the more we talk about, the more people that are out here saying, hey, wait a minute, what is going on? Why don't we have this case answered? What can we find? How do we solve this? I think every single time it gives an opportunity for somebody somewhere to hear something and go, well, wait a minute, I know. Like you said, oh, wait, I didn't see that van for 3 days and I'd seen it every day before. So I should call, right? I should call.
Sure.
So I'm excited to see what you guys do with this case. Like, I'm so excited.
We are too.
I'm sure. And so, like Fancy was saying, like, we really have been looking into what this institute is doing, and you guys are doing amazing things and many different campaigns, like the wine bottles.
Sure.
Which I love, by the way.
What is your favorite campaign that you guys have done?
The wine bottles are definitely one of my favorites. Our biggest fundraiser, we call it a wine and crime. And what I do is I bring the entire murder box of one of our cases, and people buy a ticket for like $25 generally, and they sit at different tables of about 8 or 9 people. And then I have an expert at every table, and then about every 15 minutes the experts rotate. So as you're working this case, you'll have a criminal profiler, then a detective, then somebody with some type of forensics, whatever's involved in the case. And then I usually have a family member there, so you know who you're working for. So it's a blast, and they last about 4 or 5 hours. And you come and you try to help us on a case, and if you have a really good idea of something to try, then we do it. And then I call you back and I tell you what happened.
That is the coolest thing. Oh my God, I love it.
Awesome.
We need to go to one of those, Colleen. We need to go to one of those.
Well, do y'all ever come to CrimeCon?
Speak of CrimeCon.
We're hoping. We've got our fingers crossed. They have not, we've applied 2 or 3 times now for this year. Laura Jacqueline Brand, who's one of the speakers, she spoke to them on our behalf. Okay. So we're still hoping that we might get an invitation on Podcast Row, Crime Con.
Gotcha.
If you would like to.
I do them in Atlanta. I do them, of course, at Crime Con. And we do travel. I mean, I've done them as far as Seattle.
Well, I'm in Kentucky, so you can come here anytime, and I'll host it for you.
Sure.
I'm in Wisconsin.
We do that.
So that would be fun. We would love that.
And in Indiana, do y'all know Christine Menina?
That name sounds familiar. Why does it sound familiar?
She's a detective that was on the show The Shift, and then I just want to be sure y'all know her. She's cool people. She's on the team too for Don Lewis.
Love it. Love it. I love it. I love it. It's so awesome.
So you definitely can feel free tweet at CrimeCon and be like, hey, these people.
Look at you pimping 24/7.
You have no idea. We want to go so bad, and next year we'll be there regardless. But we kind of hit it late this year, because our podcast only started out last year with the Gypsy case. It's vastly different. It's vastly different than what we're doing now. That case was extremely personal. It was a very deep dive, rough look at that. Some days I love it. Some days I look at it and go, "Hey, do you just want to scrap this?" But we hit it late. But then we started this season, and I had applied, and I think we might have hit it almost to the point where they had made decisions. But we have people who are rooting for us. So, and now they've pushed it back. So we're hoping.
Sounds good.
But we definitely want to be there. Yeah.
We pretty much have interviewed probably like a good majority of some of the featured people.
Yeah, we've interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of people from your team. I think we've interviewed quite a bit of them, and I think a lot of the others are on my list. Like I have a list that I go through each day, and I say, okay, did I talk to that person? Did I ask that person? Peter Hyatt's one of the ones that I'm waiting for. He said yes, and then he said just email me at my thing, and then the world went to a stopping point.
Sure.
And I haven't heard back from him yet, but I definitely love him to death. Like I think
I do too.
His analysis is so spot on. I watched his analysis about Leticia Stout and what she had said, and I was like, oh, it was so good. I was like, oh my God, it's so good.
And again, for your listeners, Peter Hyatt helps me in the real world, like my real world.
Right.
So I've had more than one case from my department. And I can, get in touch with them real quick and say, I need a real quick turnaround. We're trying to interview this guy tomorrow or whatever.
Right.
And he's so good. And again, giving and kind. Never charged a dime to me or my department.
I think that's something that we have realized in this industry. Like we came in, we were the newbies. We weren't, we didn't know everything. We weren't totally trained in a lot of stuff and everything. But there was nothing I'm a bold person. Okay. You're never going to hear me. I'm not the shy girl in the corner. And I always take it as the worst that anybody can say to me is no. Right. So I just started asking. I'd see people that I thought were interesting. And I was like, hey, do you want to, do you want to talk on our podcast? Do you want to I'm bold. And by doing so, we have met some of the most amazing, kind, caring people. And the thing that I've realized is how accepting this industry is with everything,
sure.
Like you said, every single person we've talked to on this podcast has been paid absolutely nothing to come and talk to us. We're not paying out, thousands of dollars for you to sit on our podcast and talk to us. No, you're here.
Wait a minute. I'm not getting paid.
No, sorry. Do you want to end the call now? You can, but I've got all the information I need. No, just kidding.
But let me tell you the truth. If people will tell you this, Nancy, even when she was at CNN, I would not take any money.
Right.
And here's the reason. If somebody were to say, well, you only said that because she paid you to say it. She never paid me to say anything.
That's right.
I have never one time taken money for my opinion, ever.
Right. Well, I just think I have been pleasantly surprised by how well we have been just welcomed into this and how encouraging every single person has been and like you said, like you're dropping all these names, and they're people that I have reached out to, and some we've interviewed and some we plan to. And it's so interesting to me how welcoming and how easy it is for them to just come on and talk about amazing things, because they care. And they want every single person to be successful in this. Like, I didn't ask Laura to go to CrimeCon, head of CrimeCon, and say, hey, you need to have them at CrimeCon. She just offered. She was like, hey, do you want me to go talk to them and tell them that, you guys are really awesome and you should be there? I was like, you could do that?
Yeah.
She's like, absolutely. Why don't you put a presentation together and I'll send it to them and I'll talk to them. And I did. And I sent it over to her. And she's like, my God, this is beautiful. I said, well, it's kind of the thing I do. So then I made her, like, she came back to me and she goes, hey, you know what? You did so great on that presentation. I'm doing a symposium. Do you think you can make me a flyer? And I was like, well, yeah, of course I can make you a flyer. I sent it over to her. She's like, this is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. But that's what I feel like this community is we just do what we can to help each other get through all this and to help the victims and the families and to speak out for this. And I think that is such a wonderful thing inside such a dark thing that we deal with,
It is. And it's kind of funny because somebody interviewed me a couple weeks ago and they said, well, how is it after all these years you haven't burnt out?
Mm-hmm.
And my response to them is, how in the world could I burn out when in my day job, I am literally surrounded by heroes.
Yes.
Right? They're running to the gunfire. They're going to run into that burning building.
Right.
They're going to.
Hello and welcome to The Baker's Show. At Baker's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big. Because when you order online through the Baker's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in-store, with no hidden fees or markups. So no matter how you shop, you'll always save big at Baker's. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Save big on your favorites with the buy 5 or more, save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
At Baker's, we know the minute a tomato is picked, the fresh timer starts. The sooner we get our produce to you, the fresher it is. That's why we've shortened the time from harvest to home for our tasty tomatoes, strawberries, and salads. So no matter how you shop, you have more time with your fresh produce. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Save as many people as they can in every way that they know how to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't even know at my department that there was a virus. We ain't quarantining for nothing. We're out, we're about.
Right.
What do you need? What can we do,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Right?
And then in the Institute, seriously, I mean, it's a gift every day to work with these people and to be able to call these people and like meeting y'all. It's a gift.
Right.
The only thing that I ever worry about is retiring and having to quit.
Right.
That's
right.
what I don't look forward to.
And that's how we feel. That's how we feel too. Like when going into the quarantine, I mean, we have been more busy since the quarantine happened than we ever were before,
Of course.
Talking to everybody, working on things, looking at things. What about this case? What about that case? We get on an interview with Todd Matthews, and the next thing I know, we're set up to do a new podcast with him on missing persons. He's like, well, let's do it. When do you want to do it? Let's get it going. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting to walk into a second podcast right now, but okay, that's what's going to happen. That's just what we're going to do. And then the same thing from Joseph Scott Morgan. He's like, what else do you want to work on? What else do you want to talk about? I got time. Let's do it.
Love it.
And so I love that we are so busy. It's been crazy. And we've even been sitting down. We have meetings at least once or twice a week going, okay, all right, so we interviewed this person. How the hell do we get all these interviews out? How do we get all this work that we've done, because it's so important. And every single one of you, we get off the meeting and we're like, I love them. I love that person. Oh my God, I can't wait to work with them on other things,
Right.
And it's just, the warmth in this community in such a dark and dreary thing that we look at every day is amazing, because
Amen.
I think it's so great to feel the heart of these people, and
love wins, baby.
And I love your all. I just love the vibes we get from all you guys,
Yes.
and and that we're accepted in that, and that we are important in that, and that you are important to us. It's just.
But you're a critical piece, and that's the thing that I mean. My mantra. I mean, I tell every rookie, do not subscribe to the media is going to ruin my case.
Right.
It's not true. You might have to build relationships. You might have to maybe only talk to 1 or 2 people in the beginning till you get, to where you know what you're doing and who you can trust. Because there are people that will publish things that you didn't say, or
that's right,
parts of the case that you asked them not to put out there.
Oh, we've been down that road. We've been down that road.
It happens, but you learn from that and you move on. But I'm
that's
saying
right.
Still, because people ask me all the time, like, podcasts, like, why are you dealing with them? Because they are a medium that is so necessary and so freaking critical that nobody owns you.
Right.
So it's not like you've got an editor saying, nope, you got to run it this way, or nope, we're not doing that story. You can do any freaking story you feel like anytime you want.
That's
and there is such power in that. And y'all, there's enough cases to go around. Because people say, oh, there's another cold case group. Does that make you mad? For who? That mama that needs an answer?
Right?
Seriously? You think McDonald's is worrying about Burger King? They're not.
Although I do like watching the Twitter wars between Wendy's and everybody else. But that's their prerogative.
My thing is, when I hear, oh, well, Laura Petler solved a cold case in her murder room. God love her. Do it, girl.
That's right.
I don't want that guy at the picture show with my child.
Right.
I don't want them at the same college campus as my child. Get him off the street. I don't give a damn who does it.
Right. Well, that's so funny you say that, because we get asked the same thing. Like, well, that podcast did that. Are you still going to cover that case? Of course I'm going to cover that case. What are you talking about? Just because they did it, I can't talk about it?
Yeah.
I have a totally different perspective than someone else, okay? We are totally different. I'm Fancy. She's Colleen. And even in our own thing, even in our own thing, we don't agree on everything. We don't see eye to eye on everything. We have arguments on our podcast, of like, I don't know why you're saying that. That's ridiculous, But I have a book of 200 cases that I want to cover. Like, and every day I think to myself, I'm not doing enough. I need to cover more. I need to do more. What can we do? How do we talk about this one? How do we do this one? Do we need 5 episodes or 4 episodes? Do we need 1 episode for that? Can we push that to 3? And it's like, it's so, and I don't care what anyone else does. Like, if you want to talk about it, just the fact, like, you just went on Levi Page and you talked about the Tiger King. That is wonderful. And I probably will listen to it because I like Levi Page. But do I care what you talked about on Levi Page and how it's different than what you said here? No, I don't. I think it's wonderful.
Right.
And I think our biggest case that we argue about is Scott Peterson.
Oh, we always argue about Scott Peterson.
What is there to argue? He's a killer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Nope.
She does not believe it. I believe 100%. But I can honestly say the only thing that I've agreed with on hers, I don't think that maybe it was a death penalty case. I don't know that it was a death penalty case. I believe in the death penalty. I support the death penalty. I believe that you have to have a lot of information to put a person to death. I think that you need to have a lot of criteria met, and I think often we don't meet that criteria when we give a death penalty to certain people, So I could acquiesce to her that perhaps he does not deserve to be on death row, but most certainly he killed his wife an unborn child. And I don't care what she says. We're actually duking this out. In a couple months. We're going to have a head-to-head.
Well, I'm going to have to listen to that.
Oh, you are, because it's going to be a head-to-head where she gets to put her side forward and I get to put my side forward. And our third, Christina, who sits on the fence on it, is going to see if she can be swayed one way or the other. And we're going to have our audience vote on what they think afterwards. If anything
interesting.
Said. Yeah, we came up with that because we thought it was, fun and it'd be great for our
just
audience,
don't see eye to eye.
We don't see eye to eye.
But again, I think that's so important. I mean, it just is.
I think it's interesting because I can look at the same stuff. I told her, I said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to look at the exact same books. I don't want you looking at a different book that I'm not looking at, or you looking at a different case file that I'm not looking at. I want us each to have the exact same stuff so that at the end of the day, we're not putting something forward that the other side doesn't necessarily have, right? So
Agreed.
I'm like, I can look at the same evidence that she looks at and I see it totally different. I'm like, this means da-da-da-da-da-da to me. And she'll go, I don't see how you can see that. This is what So we think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're really excited for that one. But I can't wait. Like I said, I just can't wait to learn more and see more from you guys. And I'm so happy that I stumbled across all of this. Like, it's so funny because I avoided Tiger King for weeks, because I was like, that looks so cheesy and trashy. Like, just cheesy and trashy was all I could think of. He's on there, he's talking. I'm like, why would I want to watch this? This is not the type of thing I want to watch. And everybody was on my feed talking about it. And I watched it, and it was cheesy and trashy. I think that what you guys are on and what you're doing and working with all of you guys in this manner, I'm so thrilled and excited to be part of all that, and to get to talk to you guys and have these experiences. And it's so interesting. So,
well, we appreciate it too. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
it's honestly an honor to talk to you guys.
It is.
Well, just feel
I can't believe the just warmth in this community. It's so great comparatively to other things that people do, So it's interesting to me to see how helpful every single person we talk to is, and how welcoming and wanting to work on all of these things instead of arguing about, stupid crap, like
Sure.
You said, people wanting to know, well, doesn't it upset you that somebody else solved the crime? No, they solved the crime. Like, that's our ultimate goal. I don't know if you know that or not, but that's our ultimate goal, is to make, to put light on these things and do things and talk about these cases, especially the cases that don't get the national media, that aren't the Casey Anthonys or the Madeline McCanns, or there's cases every day that go unsolved, that need this voice, that need people to talk about them, and care about those cases.
Oh, right. And nobody owns a case.
Right.
And it's especially, like, in general, nobody owns a case, but especially those cases that aren't solved. Yeah, because if you put one person, like a lay person, not the professionals, but just somebody like us who talks about cases, if we say, okay, that one person in the whole world gets to talk about it, then they're not going to really get to do anything, because there's no way they can do that. That's why it's up to everybody in a community, especially like local communities, to work together in figuring that stuff out.
So it's funny you say that, because one of the first, I would say, national cases that I got asked to help out on was Susan Smith in Union, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And at the time, I did not have children. I had nieces and nephews that I loved desperately. But and I have a sister that was a middle school science teacher, and a sister at the time that was a flight attendant. And I'm literally packing to go. And so they're calling me, and they're like, where are you going? What is this about? So I tell them the gist independently.
Right.
And my sister, who's the middle school science teacher, she also teaches Sunday school, just a wonderful person,
Right.
Doesn't carry a gun, ain't going to fight you. I'm letting you know that. The first thing out of her mouth was, there's no way I would have got out of the car.
No.
And I said, if somebody put a gun to your face, she said, not if my child was in that car.
No way.
Then my sister Charlene called after Sharon called. Almost an identical conversation. I hung up from those two calls and called the sheriff, and I said, she did it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't have to know anymore. So again, I deferred to them.
Right.
And then, of course, after I had my first child, I'm like, oh, Lord, they're right, honey.
There's no way. You wouldn't have got so that brings me to another very popular case, and I think the Susan Smith case actually had an impact on it, which was Darlie Routier. And, I can go back and forth on that case as to whether I think she is guilty or isn't guilty. It's a hard case, and that's one that we've worked on, that we're trying to work and do a really big thing on. And
well, let me just tell you, that's where y'all's dynamic is going to settle that for you. different angles, different viewpoints, different
Yep.
beliefs.
Have
That's
you ever
the money.
have
That's
you
the
ever looked
money
at that
right
one?
there.
Have you
No,
ever looked
we
at that
have
one?
not formally,
Wow.
no. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's what I'm
But
saying.
there's so many.
There's so many.
The Atlanta Police Department has got 1,200 cold cases. Just Atlanta.
Jeez.
And in Atlanta alone, there's like 12 or 14 police departments when you include the colleges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Georgia's got 357 counties, all have about
Mm-hmm.
3 different departments. I mean, there's
Mhm.
enough cases, y'all. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And again, sometimes the best work you're ever going to do
Mm-hmm.
is not on a high profile case.
Right.
Like with CSI Atlanta, we just solved Honey Malone.
Yes.
Not a high profile case at all,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
but a necessary case
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because these people are, wreaking havoc everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have an old case that we just did a interview with J. Reuben Appleman on, and that's the Oakland County child murders down there, down there.
Mhm.
And that's another one that is interesting to us, and we've talked about extensively. But I mean, like you said, 12,000 cold cases. I mean, that's a lot,
That's just one department.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We have some that we've had a woman who came to us. It's a California case from the 70s. She's a woman our age, and her mother died when she was 5 and was murdered.
Mm.
They found her, but they've never solved the case. And one of the things, like, there's hardly any evidence on it. And when she went to look for the evidence, they told her that it had been destroyed,
Sure. Sure.
And one of the things that was heartbreaking about that was, yes, her mother had gone into a very risque lifestyle. She did drugs. She had been a prostitute at one point, all these things. And that was the answer from that police department, though, was that, well, we don't give those cases a real look if they're prostitutes. We just don't. We can't. We don't have time for that. And that
Wow.
broke my heart for her to have heard that about her mom. That is her mom. She doesn't care that her mother was a prostitute. Her mother is gone and dead, and she doesn't know why. And it wasn't a classic case like she was on a call and, the John murdered her. It wasn't like that.
Mhm.
This is a really strange case. And there's no way that the things that happen that they say happen, people say, well, she did this, or the girl says, there's no way those things happened. Like, she wouldn't have left me, or she wouldn't have done these different things. And so that was a heartbreaking thing for us to sit and listen to. Another one out of Florida, the same thing. Like, this mother, she worked in the hospital. She went to the hospital. She went to her shift, and she called her grandmother, who was watching her 2 children, and then, saying, I'm on my way home, and never showed back up. And they know they're 100%, and they know who did it. And because there's no body, there's no evidence of a crime necessarily, that's been unsolved for several years, and so those are the cases that are just heartbreaking, and they're the ones that everyone doesn't hear about. It's
And what's so frustrating is,
Mhm.
as a criminologist,
Mm-hmm.
if she were working at the time, the first victim,
Mm-hmm.
that's where serial killers lead us.
Right.
And that's where they hone their craft, so to speak.
Right.
You don't want that person gone.
Right.
And then the other thing is the fact that she wasn't at work should make your suspect pool shrink pretty good, dude.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing, but I'm like, but there's someone's mother, there's someone's daughter, there's someone's sister, there's someone's friend. How dare you say that about her and just say, well, I'm sorry, I don't have time. She's not worth it. Like, she's not worth it? Like, really?
Well,
she's not worth it? And
sometimes,
I understand. I get it. I know why. I mean, that California,
Sure.
That's a high profile area. They've got tons and tons of cases. I get it. But on the same chance, like you said, what if that is a serial killer, that did this? What if that is, one of the breeding grounds and something actually happened, and these are the questions.
But I can break this down for you. I don't care what it is. I do not want that killer walking the same streets as my children.
Yep.
Amen. We heard that a lot. Like, people seem to be very, very sympathetic into Nicholas Godejohn in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case, talking about how he didn't get a fair thing, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you have not seen the 3,000 crime scene photos that I have seen. Okay. You've not seen. I don't care what he has or he doesn't have, or whether she manipulated him or she didn't manipulate him. He should never be walking the same area as my child. I would never feel safe. I'm like, and if you don't see it that way, something is seriously, seriously wrong with you. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve help. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to, have good people in his life that care about him, or people advocating for him to get mental help or any of those things. But when you look at those crime scene photos and you see how he brutally murdered her, you cannot then stand there and say to me, yeah, I don't have a problem with him living next door to me. Oh, the hell you would. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, and he's still in prison, that just messaging women about the same thing and being he's very, very evil person. But we go in every episode of our first season of the Gypsy case, we literally every episode go back and forth on that it's just awful with Gypsy, and then but also she's manipulated. Oh, she's much less pressing. No, it's really malingering. Back and forth the whole case, and it's
right. And I mean, I don't think that he deserves what he deserves. She took a plea. A lot of people don't understand why she took a plea. That she took a plea and why. I'm like, he was offered a plea. He didn't take it. That's on him and his lawyers for not doing their job. But at this point, I agree. I do agree that Gypsy should probably have done longer. That Gypsy probably got out of it based on her, her circumstances that pulled on the heartstrings of others, including the prosecutor. I think that her defense attorney was brilliant in what he used, because I saw exactly what he presented to the prosecutor, and I know how he manipulated that to look a certain way, and he did a great job. I mean, it was truthful. But do I think that she is not a danger? No, I think she's a very big danger, and I do think that other things will happen. But her being a danger and what she went through has no bearing on whether or not Nicholas Godejohn should or should not be in jail for for the rest of his life. Like, it just doesn't. It's two very different things, even though it's the same case. Sure. He wielded the knife. She did not, and while you can say that and I agree, she probably should be in there for life. Even with what she went through, there's lots of people who are abused, who are put through sheer hell, more than what she went through, less than what she went through, either way, that don't kill their parents. Okay. But he chose to kill that woman based on, a variety of different things. What will stop him from doing that ever again? You don't know. And he doesn't believe in a lot of things that would be the criteria to even rehabilitate him. And I do believe there are people that just are not rehabilitatable. I think that there is a time where you have to look at a person and go, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's not. It's not. There's no way. And I feel for, these women that are on his side, and it's mostly women who are just so very compassionate and feel a certain way about him. And some of them are scary in how they feel. And I think it's kind of like those women that write to serial killers and marry them. And you're like, what in the hell are you thinking?
Sure.
But, I mean, that's just a weird case. It's such an interesting, strange case. But I thank you so very much for coming on and talking to us today. We cannot thank you enough. We will be following the journey that you guys go through, whatever you care to share with us anytime of what's going on with any of your investigations, not just Don Lewis. We would love to hear any of that. And if you can put a good word in for us to any of those people on our list, including and up to Nancy Grace.
I'm going to absolutely call her as soon as we hang up.
Oh my God, you're just amazing. God. I'm about to cry right now. Oh, anyway.
A person.
She is. She is I don't know. And like I said earlier, I find myself in her. Like I feel like, cause like I said, I am the boisterous person. I am the outspoken person. I am the one that's going to scream into it, you know?
Is she your spirit animal?
I think so. I think she is. I admire her very, very much. And like I said, it's really strange because originally I was like, this woman is a nutcase. And then the more and more I watched her and the more and more I read, and then I read her book and everything, the more and more I realized, now she's my people. Like, you know?
I will leave your listeners with one final thing about her. Nancy could have any crime analyst or criminologist or crime scene investigator in the United States on her show. Any. And for the last 20 years, she has had me on the Nancy Grace show. She doesn't have to do that. So that, I'm just telling you, that's the kind of friend she is, the kind of person. She's been extraordinarily good to me. And I'm telling you, back in the day, she was the hardest working prosecutor I'd ever seen. She was the first prosecutor that anybody had ever seen leave the courthouse and come to a crime scene. And she would come out with us at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
work ethic is insane. Her work ethic is insane.
About in the early 90s,
yes.
late 80s.
Yes.
Nobody was doing that, not even California. So this was a new thing, but she wanted to understand it. She wanted to be able to walk it and smell it and see it so that she could convey it to that jury.
And that's me.
She did better than anybody.
That's me. That's how I am. I need to see it. I need to touch it. I need to feel it. I need to, I need to stand in that space. That's why when I went down to Louisiana for the Gypsy case, I didn't just talk to the Blanchard family. I talked to Dee Dee's whole family. Like, I spoke to every single one of them. I spoke to her friends. I spoke to people who knew her in high school. Like, I wanted to know every single thing I could. Like, I wanted to stand in the space that, Gypsy went and played at. I wanted to see where Rod and Christy met, where Rod and Dee Dee met. Like, I wanted to see all those things, like, because it was important to me. And that is the same thing. Like, I want to be that type of person, that investigator, that researcher that does that. Like, and so you're right. I admire her in such a way because of her ethics and how how deeply she feels these cases,
And let me just tell you, like with Boston Strangler, I would bounce off of her and she would tell me, don't forget this. You got to make that. Nobody's going to care about your opinion. What can you prove? She's always good about that.
What can you prove? Exactly.
And she'll just gently remind you because you know something, you know it, you believe it, but can you prove it?
But can you prove it? Right.
She will answer the phone the exact same way. And like I told y'all, she recently just walked a case with me. I mean, we're in the woods. And people don't even know that. And this is not a high-profile case. Y'all are never going to hear of this woman. And so I'm saying that's the person Nancy Grace is. Right. And she doesn't even like for me to tell people. She's like, don't tell me. People can know that.
Right.
Because she is this person on TV and they think that
yes. Right.
Well,
really it's the same thing of like, people think they know you because they're friends with you on Facebook. Like, that's the highlight reel. Like, like
yes,
that's the highlight reel. Or that's the person you see. Like, I've been talking about COVID a lot, like tons and tons and tons and tons. I ask a bunch of questions. I don't believe a lot of different things. But I'm not like the person who's like, well, 5G is causing this. I'm not that person. I'm just like, okay, guys, I just think there's more, and I just need to know. I need to know why there's more. But that's me. I'm going to be that person. Now, is that who I am all day long, every day? No, not necessarily. I can take that off and I can set it aside and I can be just a totally different person. You may see me, talking on the podcast and I may be really hard on something and walk away and cry about it later, because we all have a certain piece that we play in all of these things, but there's so much more to people than that. Than what people see, than what a person sees on a 5-minute interview on, CNN.
Absolutely.
Or, or 5 posts on a Facebook and you think a person. Like, you don't know why that person feels that way or said that or did that. You have no idea. And And so I think that people have to remember that again, like I said, every person is battling their own battles and dealing with their own things, and they are a human, and we make mistakes and we say things and we do things and we look at things differently. And that's what makes the world beautiful. It just does. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let us know how that phone call goes with Miss Nancy. And I will let you know, if there's
who
someone
else is on our list.
Yeah, who else is on our list. And then I'm going to talk to you about working on other stuff, because I totally am.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much, darling.
Thank you.
Y'all, I've enjoyed it tremendously, and I'll talk to you soon. I'm going to call Nancy right now.
Oh, thank you, Sheryl.
Thank
You're
you.
so darling. All right. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get the full recipe shared tonight, inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.
Hello and welcome to The Baker's Show. At Baker's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big. Because when you order online through the Baker's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in-store, with no hidden fees or markups. So no matter how you shop, you'll always save big at Baker's. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Save big on your favorites with the buy 5 or more, save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
When you download the Baker's app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every $1 spent. Baker's makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Baker's app now to save big on your next purchase. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.